Hey, friend, welcome back to the Pro Organizers Coach podcast and YouTube channel. I'm so excited for today's episode. Today, I have Ina Coveney, and she has her own podcast, which we are so excited to talk about and get into because what she does is actually super helpful for you. And we're going to get so into it. So, the topic for today is talking about branding, which I know a lot of us kind of get in that place of like, ugh, branding, what is it? How does it work? And Ina actually helps coaches brand, but she helps them brand with small audiences, which is how it is so helpful for you because let's face it, as organizers, most of us have smaller audiences. So we need to know how to turn those into paying clients. So thank you so much, Ina, for being on the show.
You just described that so beautifully.
Thank
I need
you.
to transcribe that and steal it because you just did a great job. Thank you so much for having me, Samantha. So excited to be here and talk all things branding.
I love it. So, Ina is a business coach and the host of the Superhumans podcast, which I love the name, by the way.
Thank you.
And she delves into the minds of the super successful, sharing lessons and ideas that help us all chase and achieve our wildest dreams. Ina helps business owners create a magnetic brand online by monetizing a small audience first, which I love because I actually did a few episodes a little while back about magnetic content. And this idea of magnetic content, like I love because it does exactly that. It's branding and it's content, but it's pulling your people to you versus I'm chasing and I'm trying to find and that like hustle mentality versus I'm doing the right things. And so my people are going to come find me. And so I love that you are like niched into that. It is so good, especially for my audience. So tell us a little bit about like your podcast, who you are, what you do in your words, and then we'll totally dive into the topic.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that opportunity, that great introduction. So I feel like everybody needs to understand why we talk about small audiences. So I'm a marketing strategist. Like what I help people do is get into this whole marketing world, email marketing, putting themselves out there online, creating a brand that people recognize and that they trust and that they like. And I came into the online marketing world thinking, well, I'm just going to create a course and I'm going to sell it to massive success overnight. And then I'm just going to be reaping the rewards forever in my sleep and just live like I'm living my life in a paid vacation, right? Like that's the expectations. It's crazy, but those are the expectations that we have when we come to the online world. And it took me a little while, at least 2 years, to really figure out that growing my audience, number one, it's a lot harder than other people make it look, right?
Yes.
And number two, I realized that I had crossed the 6-figure mark in revenue in my business within those 2 years. And I hadn't even acknowledged it because I kept thinking that the only measure of success online is having a large audience. So at the time that I made it to the 6-figure mark, I had probably like 700 followers on Instagram, maybe 300 people on my mailing list, maybe like 100 in my Facebook group. So I still felt like a complete fraud, like a complete failure. And then I looked at the numbers and I realized all of this came to a head when I was paying this really high ticket coach. And by the way, this is not a ding on that coach. I think that there's prices for everybody out there. There's small prices and there's big prices. And I was paying a big price. And at the end of our engagement, I didn't make the kind of money that I thought I would by working with them. And I did not have the money to pay them at the end, like the final installment. And don't worry, I made them whole. This was not their fault, right? But I got so mad that when I looked at my finances, I'm like, how is it possible that I have made over $100,000 in my business? And not only did I not get to keep any of it, but also I was putting it into trying to grow an audience, which wasn't growing, when in reality, I had already figured out what to do to make money. So that's when I just completely switched my brand and my messaging and my everything. And I said, I need to help everybody understand that you can get clients first. That is the first thing you should be doing and not focusing on the numbers. So I'm so glad that we get to talk, because I feel like you are talking to my people, right? To people who have small audiences and they're like beating themselves up over it. It's like, if I'm going to be online, I should be growing my audience, but I only have 200 followers. That's okay, because you have a local business. Chances are you're not going to be growing an account to 5 million followers if you are going out there getting clients locally, right? So if you don't have your sights on creating a course or you're doing something more global, like, what is a big audience going to do for you? Probably not much. So as an organizer, if you're looking for local clients, I'm here, like, this is what we're going to really dive into. How can you use the online space so that your local business can thrive? And it has nothing to do with going and growing the audience to big numbers. So I hope that explains a little bit of where I'm coming from, where my passion comes from, so we can start talking about the real stuff.
Oh yeah. And I love that. That's why I wanted to have you on and I wanted to do this, is because it's exactly that. Like whenever any episode I have or inside of my group coaching community, I'm constantly making sure that I'm authentic. Like, hey, here are the struggles I'm dealing with. Here are the things, I'm 100 episodes in on a podcast. I've been doing it for 2 years. I still am technically not making money off of it because it's going right back into editing the pot, or not editing, but like, the social media strategy and the this and the that, and, all the things that come with it. And I think a lot of times people, we get those mindsets of exactly what you said. Oh, well, they have this platform or they have this podcast or they have this whatever. So they must be making so much money and they must have so many downloads. And that's the other thing that I love about this is I have been organizing in people's homes at this point for what, 4 years, 5 maybe now. And my Facebook following, which I don't even know the numbers, that's how much I care about it, about the numbers. I think I'm maybe at like 900, but a lot of those have also come from Pro Organizers Coach. My actual like Facebook business page for my organizing business has under 300 people, but I stay constantly booked. And every single day I'm working with clients, I am always at least 2 to 3 weeks out on my bookings. And that business is thriving financially with a teeny tiny audience.
Right.
But it's because I've been very, very strategic about the brand and about knowing who I'm talking to, how I'm talking to them, what my mission in life is to help them. And when you get aligned inside of yourself and knowing those things, it is magnetic. Your people will find you. And so what would you say, or like kind of wherever you want to start with this, but what would be like your first tip of like, hey, here's how you do the branding?
Okay. This is something that I learned. I started this whole online marketing situation by making websites. I was a corporate person, right? I was a software project manager for really big software projects out there, like for multinational companies. That's where my background came from. And I always felt like I needed to do something else with my life. So I started just making websites for small businesses on the side. And at first, I had no idea that online marketing was like really a thing. That kind of came a little later, but it was just through developing other people's like outward facing online presence that I realized I'm like, anybody can do this. Anybody can look really good online. There's like a few little tips and tricks that you can be using right now to look like you're making $1 million, right? And it has nothing to do with like with the money. It has more to do with how are you being perceived? Do people trust you? Do people know that you know what you're talking about? And are you portraying that image out there? That's all it is. So when I start a new podcast, that is not necessarily like, oh, people ask me all the time, like, how much money do you make with your podcast? Is it like, are you really getting an ROI? I'm like, it's not about that. Like, forget about the sponsors, forget about like making money with every episode. It's the fact that if I'm here talking to Samantha Brown and Samantha Brown has like credibility next to her, people who listen to her are going to start to see me in a different way. Nobody who's listening to me right now knows how much money I make, right? Like, you
Right.
don't know how much money I have in my bank account. You don't know if anybody's paying me for this. You know nothing. But just the fact that I'm here talking authoritatively about this with my years of experience and that I'm next to Samantha Brown does something to elevate me. So why don't we start with a few tricks? Like, let's distill them down to 3. And full honesty, I actually don't know what the 3 are. Like, they're gonna come to me as we talk to see what's our top priority. But I would say number 1 is just realizing that you can look professional online. You can definitely look more professional online. So if you're using your accounts, first of all, can you choose one platform right now? Just choose one platform that you really want to go in and spend time on it and grow it and make it your own, right? Let's say Instagram. That's my primary platform. Let's call it Instagram. If you're going on Instagram and you are posting constantly pictures about your dog and your kids and what you had for lunch and the fact that you love these socks that you got on Amazon, right? Like, if you're constantly posting personal things, like that's basically like a lifestyle blog more than it is really a business credibility building account. Now, there's something to be said for you building that rapport with your audience. Here's what I'm going to tell you. There's a space for you to do that, and it is in your Instagram stories. Go ahead and post to your stories about what you had for lunch all day long. But at the same time, I need to know that when I go to your feed, I am going to see a professional look. So that's kind of like the first tip. I want you to self-audit your account. And I want you to look at it and say, if I were coming in here and reading that bio and looking at that profile picture and seeing your username, is your username Kittens Forever 101? Or is it professional organizer in Kentucky? What is it, right? Am I going to understand what you do? So why don't we start there? Self-audit your account. Does it really look like you're building credibility, right? And maybe we can use the other 2 tips to see like how we can build credibility. But I feel like that's step 1. Do you feel like there's a lot of organizers who maybe like not getting the memo that social media needs to start getting used to build credibility?
So I feel like we fall into 2 camps, okay? So you fall into the kind of what you're talking about, but a lot of times the people that originally have been on Instagram and have just posted like little things or like them on a walk or like quotes. One thing is that a lot of times people don't want to show their face, which is a huge thing I coach around with my ladies that as I'm coaching them, because it seems like a lot of people that come into the professional organizing world have had some kind of maybe teaching background or professional, like corporate background, somewhere where they were not the face of the company. And we are expecting people to open up their homes to us and to trust us. And so, even getting people to put a photo on the homepage of their website so people know who it is that's behind the business. It's hard sometimes. Once they get over that little hump, they're normally awesome, good to go. And then the other kind of camp is it's more of they want to be professional, but instead of because I believe that we should figure out who we are talking to and like what we're talking about, and then be very strategic about what we're posting, right? Like before and afters and reviews and tips, but also it can be other things as long as it falls into kind of our pillars. So the problem though is a lot of people, they don't know who they're talking to. They end up seeing someone else's account and thinking, oh, well, HGTV, those organizers look like this. And so I need to make it so professional that then it's not authentic to who they are. So they kind of fall into either they don't want to post at all, especially their face, or they want to make it so professional that it doesn't feel authentic to like even their community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I love what you said, because like, you are an organizer, you're going to be going into people's homes, right? So if I am going to hire you to come into my house, to my most sacred private space, I need to feel like I know who you are,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I need to feel like I can reach out to you and that I can trust you to come into my space. So
Mm-hmm.
I love it that you said that. So starting with showing your face on social media, I wanted to give this little tip and this little piece of advice because what would you say? Let me ask you before I make any assumptions. What do you think is the biggest obstacle for organizers to want to show their face? Do you think it's a privacy concern? Do you think the people are going to come after their family or find out where they live? Like, what is it? Or is it just shyness? What do you think is the biggest qualm with it?
I think it's the imposter syndrome that comes in. Now, let me preface this. If they've been a teacher, it's because they've been taught as a teacher, you don't show, like you keep your professional separate from personal. So
Right.
if they're a teacher, this doesn't necessarily apply. But if they're having trouble putting their face out there, a lot of times it's because the imposter syndrome is coming up of like, I've not fully worked with enough clients or I don't feel professional enough. And so then it's like, the I'm not worthy kinda comes in.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I just need to tell you that for everybody who's listening, there is a universe out there where when you show your face, when you are on social media, people really see the real you.
Mhm,
It's not about the you who makes $1 million or the you who has to look super professional. It's just people just see you and people
mhm,
just like you for you. Now, with that power, right, with that ability to attract the right people, you will also repel some people,
mhm,
and one comes with the other. So for anybody who's having a little bit of trouble, like wanting to show their face because they feel like, oh, maybe like I'm not professional enough, or, what if they don't like me, or like, or if, whatever is coming to your mind, I want you to know that you will always repel people equally as you attract them. So the more people you want to attract, the more people you're going to repel. And that's something
mhm,
we just have to get used to in business. And I know how hard that is because I am the queen of fear of rejection, right? Somebody unsubscribes from a mailing list and I'm like, oh, it hurts, right? It hurts. But at the same
mhm,
time, I've learned enough to know, no, no, no. If they're leaving, it's because they just don't belong here. They're just not part of my group. They're just not my people. And that is totally fine because tomorrow I'll get 2 new subscribers and they will want to stay. So I want you to know there's a universe out there where there are people who really like you for you and
mhm,
they follow you because other people are not like you. They're out there unsubscribing from everybody else's and they see you and they're like, I really like what she has. And I love it that she's honest. And I love it
mhm,
that her house looks like mine. I love it that her schedule looks like mine. And she managed to get everything organized. I feel like I could learn something from her. So when you're not showing your face, you're robbing people of the opportunity to like you in that way, right? So you're
mhm.
not saving anything by keeping your face hidden. So starting there, like, does that make sense? Is that a good message to
Oh,
send out
yeah.
to everybody,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, and in the way that it's not like, what's kinda coming up for me too is, as much as, we take it personally, especially at first. I am the biggest person that took everything to heart. It really isn't personal in the sense of they think you're a bad person or they think, it's not personal in that way. It's
Mhm.
it's business, it's teaching, it's learning, it's growing. Maybe they're just a little farther along than you are. That's okay. Maybe like you said, they just don't vibe with you. Great, because then that leaves room for the people who do vibe with you to come
Right,
in. And
right.
so, yeah, and it's kind of like whenever I was getting certified as a coach, I remember somebody saying on a podcast one time, the more no's you get, the closer you're getting to that first yes. And
And
that stuck
that's
with
amazing.
me.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what
Mhm,
it is. So Samantha and
mhm,
Ina here, we want to encourage everybody who's listening to get as many no's as possible because you
mhm,
will be getting yeses because you're putting yourself out there. Okay? You're not like we say in Spanish, like Nobody is a monedita de oro. Not everybody is a gold coin. Everybody loves a gold coin. Nobody would ever say no to a gold coin. Nobody's a gold coin, right? So we are going to be like an acquired taste for our people, and people are gonna love us for it. So I guess summarizing tip number one, right, is that you can do this. You can look more professional with more credibility. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be stuffy about it. The more honest and fun you are, and the more of your personality you bring to it, the better off you're going to be, and the more you're going to attract your people. Just remember, you will repel people in the process, and that is okay. Not everybody's a gold coin. Neither are you, neither am I. The people unsubscribe from me all the time, and I think I'm a lovely person. Okay?
Right.
So let's do that. Number one. Let's go with tip of branding yourself number two. There is such thing as building credibility online, even if you're not going for growing the audience. Okay, it's something like I like to make a huge distinction between I am online to grow an audience and I am online to get clients. It's like two completely different paths. So when you go out there and you listen to these gurus who are talking about growing your online account, and they will tell you, hey, post as much as possible. It doesn't matter what it looks like, just keep posting, right? And you're like, well, I have 5 kids and a job and a side business. How am I supposed to be posting 3 reels a day? That is insane. It's because what you're listening to is advice that is not meant for you. That advice is meant for people who are literally online to grow an audience to 100,000 followers by whatever means possible. So I have seen accounts that have grown to 40,000 followers in a matter of 3 months. And it's all based on great messaging and volume. That's it. If you have a specific message and you're posting literally all the time content that is really good, you're going to grow. That's it. But it's a real easy formula. The thing is that even after they get to those 40,000, I know somebody in my audience who made it to 100,000 followers. They come back and they're like, so how do I get them to buy again? Because it's not the same. We live in this fantasy world where if we grow our audience, we're going to get more clients. That is not always the case. So there is such thing as focusing on getting clients versus audience growth. And the way you do that, the way you make that distinction, like how can you tell the difference between what is a getting client strategy and audience growth strategy, is through the word visibility. When you go out there and get visibility, it's all about credibility building. I have gotten clients, even with my tiny audience, just by being on somebody else's podcast, just being here. Just the fact that people are listening to me talk right now, it's putting me up as an expert. Again, right now, nobody has gone to my Instagram account. Nobody has any idea how many followers I have, how much money I make, right? They're just listening to me as an expert. And it makes them want, like, if they like me, right? If they can get past my accent, okay, they'll come to my account and be like, oh, wow, she's fun and she talks about marketing. Let me see what I can learn about her, and maybe they'll follow, right? And many of them will turn into clients. So there is a difference between showing up for visibility, for exposure, for credibility building that gets you clients. There's a direct line between that and clients that has nothing to do with growing an audience. When I came here on this podcast, I did not expect that my audience is going to grow by 100, 200 followers just by being here. That's not my goal, right? I want to be here to share my knowledge. So the second tip that I have for everybody is that don't just limit yourself to the 99 followers that you have right now and nurturing just them. I want you to get out there and start talking to other people's audiences, right? Get out there and start getting featured on podcasts. Find out if there's going to be local organization conferences in your area. Travel there. Go to the website of the conference and see if there's any workshop opportunities. There's so many of those around that you can just go and pitch yourself and be like, yeah, I'd like to teach a workshop. And it's going to be money because now you have to buy the materials and you have to get yourself there. And maybe you have to put yourself up in a hotel. And it's going to be an investment. But those are the things that are going to put you in the right place to get the right exposure, to build the right credibility. And then you take all that stuff and you put it online. You go and you share that in your platform. Say, look where I was featured, and come and see me in my workshop at so-and-so conference. All of that makes you a part of the industry, makes you a part of the conversation, and it gives you a leg up over other people who are still talking about their cats, their dogs, and what they had for lunch. Does that make sense?
I love it. And it actually reminds me, just yesterday, I had a lady reach out to me and she said, "Oh, I just found your card." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then she went on to tell me that her mom had attended a conference that I was a part of where I got to do a speaking engagement for like 20 minutes. It was a luncheon, it wasn't this huge thing. And it was like a year and a half ago at this point. But her mom took the card and the information that I had given her, gave it to her daughter. Her daughter put it up, and then yesterday or day before, whenever it was, found it, called me, and now she's ready to do her entire home with me.
Oh,
Right?
that is incredible. That
Yeah.
that is such a testament to like how this works, which I
Mhm.
think that would make a great third tip,
Mhm.
which is you are in it for the long haul. Like you're in this for the long game, right? We can't be in this business of being organizers, of
Mhm.
being online. Anything that we do, we can't come into it thinking, well, let me be an overnight success. Oh, that
Mm-mm.
didn't work last month. Oh, well, I guess I need to change my entire strategy. I guess this didn't work out, right?
Yep.
1 month. Are you kidding
Mhm.
me? Right? I'm sure everybody who's listening has been doing their organization business for a long time. And there's many of them who are like, I'm talking to you guys, like, there's many of you who may be thinking, like, I don't even know if this is working. Like, I'm not getting enough clients. I'm not like, right? I want you to know that longevity is a huge asset for you, because what would have happened if Samantha's person who saw it in the conference, who got the thing, what happens if 18 months later they would have found the card, they had called the number, and the number was disconnected? What
Mhm.
would have happened is Samantha, have you had any rough times over the past 18 months?
Oh, yeah.
So are you
Yes.
are you telling me things haven't just been like smooth
Oh,
sailing,
yeah,
everything
no.
just
No,
up,
at
up, 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 up?
right. Yeah, it's more of a down up kinda thing when because as an organizer, the goal is to help your client. Well, it's not like with cleaning where I'm coming back every week or every other week. We
Mhm.
are constantly having to find new clients because hopefully I've helped you. And
Right.
then, yeah, you may need me to come back and like check in once in a blue moon, but we're not going to have to go through the whole house again. And so
Right.
you're constantly looking for those new clients. And there are times that even just this year, and I'm in my fourth year ish, beginning of this year, I think it was January. There was a month there where I was like, wow, it's been a minute since I've heard this many crickets. Like, where are the
Yeah.
phone calls? All right, God, like I need some more leads. Like, what is going on? And but especially in the beginning, those first, and I tell my listeners all the time, 6 to 9 months minimum from launch. That's not from, "Oh, I had the idea that I'm gonna start my business." That's everything's ready to go. You've launched your business. You have, like, worked with your first client. From that moment, minimum 6 to 9 months before you see any kind of, like, even consistency in the fact of, every week you have sessions or it
Right.
takes time to grow. But the thing
Yes.
is exactly what you're saying. When you're in it for the long haul, it's really hard at first. It's like crickets, then it starts to grow, but then you hit a point where all of a sudden you're like, "Wait," it's almost like 5 timesing itself. Like, it's not just the, "Oh, it took me this long to get here, so now it's gonna take this long to get that much further." No.
Yeah.
It takes you this long to get here, but then at some point it starts, like, doubling, and then it starts, and it makes all of that time that you spent dealing with all of the longevity stuff completely worth it because now you have authority. Now you know what you're talking about. Now you know what you're doing. And so that's when it starts to double on itself.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And people need to hear it, that, especially from successful business owners out there, that it is a roller coaster. That just because you're having a downturn, like, doesn't mean that this is the end, that it's time to change everything. That we just have to ride those waves the way that they come. So if you had decided, Samantha, within the last 18 months that you're like, you know what? I just don't think that I want to deal with this roller coaster anymore. Boom. I'm out of business. That's it. I'm closing everything down. You would have never gotten that client. So now I'm here thinking like, well, does it make sense to do something to get a client in 18 months? Like, no, you're missing the point. The point is you're building a pipeline that, tomorrow you may have a client that you have no idea where they came from, and they came from something that happened a year ago. So that's why the long game is so important. If you continuously become a part of the industry, if you continuously put your face out there, put your face out there, and your social media is looking the best that it can to build that credibility. If you get yourself out on podcasts, get yourself out on conferences, don't stop, right? And I'm gonna put this in here because I have two kids. I have an I have a teenager now. He just turned 13 this week, and I have another one turning 7 tomorrow. And I live in the land of interruptions, right? The summer was hard. I was an Uber driver for my kids the entire summer, right? So my business comes in waves too, right? Sometimes I am in the zone and everything is working and I'm getting so many clients, and sometimes I am taking my kids to camps 3 times a day, because why would they not just have all day camps? Why do they have camps in the morning and camps in the afternoon and I have to drive them there and back all day long, right? Like that happens. So my point is, when I say don't stop, I mean it's okay to adjust. You're the boss. Adjust your schedule. Let your schedule and your business flex with the times, right? If your kids need you right now, then you just get a fewer clients, but you don't stop keeping up the credibility factor. And that's where having an online account and an email marketing strategy actually helps you. Because even if you want to take downtime, like, you know what I did this summer? I seriously was spending the entire summer preparing for this new podcast, for the Superhumans podcast that I am launching, right? Which by the time that this comes out, it will have already launched. I'm so excited. It's just a few weeks away. And I spent the entire summer just focusing on building this podcast and taking my kids around town, right? And during that time, I just had my email marketing and my old podcast cranking out content that I scheduled in the beginning of the summer. So that's what I mean. You can still take time, right, to breathe and to say, like, well, I need to spend a little bit less time in the business, a little bit more time with my kids, and the business is going to ramp up later. But don't stop the credibility and visibility part. Make sure that you're still sending out emails to your audience with tips. Make sure you schedule some posts on social media with whatever it is that you feel like people should be doing right now. So don't give that up. Don't disappear off the face of the earth. If you need a break, schedule some stuff. That's where online marketing really helps you not disappear when you need a downtime. So I feel like that's the bonus. That's the bonus tip. So we did the 3 tips. I don't know that I can say them all in one shot because we were coming up with them as the conversation was taking us. But like that would be the bonus step, is whatever you do, just don't stop and use social media to compensate for the time that, for whenever you need downtime. That's the beauty of it. It's like social media doesn't stop. So you can just schedule your things. I really hope that this has been like,
oh my gosh, it's been so good. So, so good. And please, please, please tell everyone about like your freebie and about which you've already mentioned the podcast, but mention it again because why not?
Yes. So I am going to be interviewing really successful people, which I have been interviewing a lot of really good people on my podcast so far. And we are rebranding. We are moving to the Superhumans podcast, where I want to humanize their success, right? So we're going to be having conversations with the people who have built the $1 million business, right? Who have really reached certain heights. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, just go find the Superhumans podcast. Is 2 words, Superhumans. And we're going to be having so many great conversations there. And I'm also going to include an extra episode every week with really practical tips on this stuff, on branding, on putting yourself out there, on exposure, on to make sure that you're growing your business over there. So make sure you're doing that. But I did have one gift that it really goes into the whole theme of getting clients online with a small audience. I call it the 10 days of hot leads. And it's 10 days is a 10-day for completely free course. It's an email course, so you get it delivered to your inbox over 10 days. And in each day, I'm giving you a specific thing to do. It's like I'm teaching you a lesson and I'm telling you to go and do something on social media that is going to increase your chances of getting clients like in the next 30 days. So after those 10 days, you should already start to see a little bit more action, a little more activity in your social media. So to go get it completely free, you can go to 10daysofleads.com. That's the number 10, daysofleads.com. And thank you so much, Samantha, for letting me share that with everybody and for bringing me on to talk about this. I could talk about this all day long.
No, I love it. The passion comes out of you, but what I also love about what you're offering is the fact that over those 10 days, and of course the link will be in the show notes and the description. But whenever we learn something, we don't unlearn it. So even if in those 10 days, like, oh, well, something magical didn't happen, which maybe it will, and that would be fantastic, but all of a sudden you have 10 new things that, like, okay, time to rinse and repeat. Let me go back to number 1 and do that or whatever. Like, that's what I love about being a forever student and like learning from different people and what they're doing and how they're doing it, is because you may be doing something I haven't even thought of. And then all of a sudden, once I know it's a thing, you best believe I'm going to be doing it.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that because I'm the same way. I am the kind of person that if something worked for me one time, I may be in a different stage of my journey. So I revisit it 3 months later, 6 months later,
Mhm.
a year later. I'm the person who goes back, let me just go back to step 1 and see what I can learn from that process again. So I love that you said that because, yeah, once you have your 10 days, and by the way, this course is trickled over 10 days, but on the 10th day, you get the full course in a single page. So you can just bookmark that and just review it anytime you want. You don't actually even have to keep the emails. I give you like the whole thing by the end of it. So yeah, you can go through it anytime you want to refresh your social media.
Ugh, I love it. And for all of you listening, make sure to definitely go check out the Superhumans podcast, which I'm so excited about. And of course, all of her links and everything, the freebie, all of it will be in the show notes below. And thank you, Ina, so much for coming on the podcast. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Samantha. You're doing such amazing work for everybody because like I know so many local entrepreneurs who
Mm.
have trouble like conceptualizing how they can get more followers or more clients, or like how to grow a local business truly. So I really appreciate everything that you're doing for this community. So
Mm.
thank you for having this space and this podcast. I think everybody's so lucky to be in your space. So, and thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
Yay, thank you. And for those of you listening, we will catch you in the next episode.